Okay, sorry for the delay. It is 9:05 on Monday, January 28, 2019. And I call the Potter County Commissioners Court to order. Today we have Holly Batson from First Baptist Church of the Bureau of Education. If you please stand and please.
Father, we live in a time when not only our country but our world is more divided than ever before. In your providence, you have chosen Potter County to be one of the most diverse places on your entire globe. May we live with courtesy toward each other, appreciation for varying viewpoints. May we live with harmony and humility, that not only our nation but the world could look and see how we do it here, with care and grace, even when we disagree. Thank you for those who serve, those who are seated here before me. What a gift their time is for our community. Bless them for that gift. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes from January 14, 2019 Potter County Commissioners Court and January 11, 2019 Special Commissioners Court. Is there any corrections or none? So recognize vouchers. Consider and act upon the approval of the payment of vouchers processed by the County Auditor's Office for the period of January 9, 2019 to January 23, 2019. Check numbers 184062 through 184262, and wire transfers 1186 through 1191, in the amount of $2,601,543.57.
Move to approve the vouchers for wire transfers and checks as stated by the county judge.
Second for discussion. I have a quick question, Judge. Carrie, page 5 of 26. You get wire number 184116, a late fee on a MasterCard.
Yes, if we don't get those statements in time to bring them to court, they do charge a fee and they will not waive.
And do the checks just come via mail? If we don't get them via email, maybe help escalate it?
The statements.
The statements?
We do not. We just get them still.
Should we try a different card instead of MasterCard? Should we try a Visa or Discover or something that floats a little better?
I can check with the departments, the corrections departments, and see if we're going to change this.
Because I think this might be the third or fourth in the last couple of years, so it keeps continuing. Just, okay, thank you. Thank you, Judge.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor? 5-0. Insurance report, to recognize the insurance fund report. Karen Holland.
There's nothing unusual on the insurance fund report.
So recognize number 4, the insurance advisory committee, to hear a report from the insurance advisory committee, take any action necessary. I have nothing in my packet to back that up. Is there anything?
There really wasn't anything to put in there. This is just a brief update on, December 10th, Commissioner Murguia specifically asked that the insurance advisory committee meet to discuss potential funding streams in the event that the insurance fund continued to struggle and contingency is depleted. We did meet and discuss that, and Carrie was in that meeting with us. Really the only place for money to come from after the contingency fund is fund balance. And so it would come from fund balance in the event that contingency were depleted and the insurance fund continues to struggle. We have asked for an estimate of plan costs through the end of the year. from Texas Association of Counties Mayor in the process now of running reports to get that, those large claimants, to get case notes for the large claimants so they can determine what the potential cost might be, through the end of the year, and I'll update the court as soon as I get that information.
So Kay, we're not expecting, these high claims to taper down at the present moment, or we just don't know?
We just don't really know, there are a lot of unknown variables.
Okay.
I was told in an email that I received this morning that we do have two, large claimants that, may have just begun treatment in December, so I don't know. We don't know about them yet, that's part of what's being, requested at this time.
And then, and when you say fund balance, what fund balance does that fall into?
It would be the general fund.
Just general fund balance, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no action taken on number 4. Tax office consider and act upon tax refunds for overpayment taxes. So these are the usual suspects. Usual things, huh? Okay. Anything unusual in any of these? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the refunds for overpayment as presented to the court.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Number 6, quarterly budget comparison. We recognize the first quarter comparison report for fiscal year 18.
The ordinary here.
Carrie, the only question I had was just actually right at the top in short order about the variance on the current property tax. $500,000, is that just a timing thing, or are we kind of that behind the mark in terms of collections?
I feel like it's just a timing thing, and I'll get Sherry to confirm that. Don't you feel like we're pretty much on par for our collections?
Yeah, we should collect about 25% just this week.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on that? Okay, so recognize treasurer's report, monthly treasurer's report, and the quarterly investment report. Leanne.
Okay, good morning. First off, this one, I'll just give you the numbers of where we are at cash balance. At A and B, our rate this morning is 2.65. And, our balance in the checking account this morning is $14,664,544.23. Texas class, we're earning 2.64 with $1,793,458.91. Texas pool, we're earning 2.38. We have $410,959.85. Texas pool prime earning 2.60. These are all totals from this morning. And, we have $22,355,014.91. So our total cash in general this morning is $39,223,977.90. Our current balance of all accounts in A and B this morning, not just general, but the total amount, was $39,441,000. We are currently collateralized at $60 million, so we've got plenty of room these last few days. Sherry's office should be really busy. Okay, then if you'll look in your investment report, and I apologize, I hope everyone found page 6 there. That was it. On page 3, I noticed that December's totals down for the interest rate and the general fund did not show. So, December we were earning 2.49 in our regular accounts, and the general account was 2.52 for December. Sure. That number. And then on page 5, we had 2 new accounts added this time, this quarter. Number 22 is CAD number 1, and it's account for sales, tax revenues, and interest earned for the county assistant district number 1. And, so there's your explanation and, the account. And then number 34 is new, and it's called, we've named it Host Court, and it's the temporary account for the collection of donations to provide the host night meal and entertainment for the 90th annual West Texas County Judges and Commissioners Association. So that's included. Okay, then on page 6, you can see the comparison of, I'll just glance at that real quick. Page 7, I just wanted to point out how the rates are continuing to climb and, how well we're doing so far. We've been very blessed. Page 8 kind of gives you a summary of the last 3 years to, also confirm that.
I have a question on that one. So on the insurance fund, the decline that we just kind of talked about too, I just wanted to highlight that, because when I think what you're saying, Carrie, is this is the fund, then it goes to contingency. The contingency is depleted, which we only mark $500,000 a year, then it's just general fund balance after that. So making sure I'm following on the funds. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's everything I had there. I did ask Sherry if she wouldn't mind giving us the totals of where we are, especially with our top 20 and, with collections. So,
Right now, our collections is at 65%. Again, we're gonna probably collect another 25% this week, and maybe the first couple of days of February. Half of our top 20s have paid. I'm sure there were several others that came in the mail this morning, I'm not aware of. But, Excel being one of our larger ones, we tend to not get them by the end of January, they tend to come in the first of February, so collections seem to be right on track. I don't see any problems. Other than trying to get it all posted and we're ready for it.
Okay, thank you so much. So recognize number 8, funding for the district course building project. Consider and act upon the selection of a prospective funding mechanism, certificates of obligation or bonds concerning the construction of a new course building should such project be approved by the judge. Before we start, I have a couple of facts I want to talk about. The strategic plan, which we did, thanks to Commissioner Gideon and Commissioner Vaughn, back in 2018, was very successful. And we got an award to prove it. So, but during that time, we came up with, every department head, every elected official got together, even though it was kind of a yah thing, we didn't want to do it because it took all day, but we did it 4 days out of the year, we came together as a group, and we came up with, a really very good strategic plan. We all are in possession of the book that they gave us through PRPC, and we're very grateful to them also. The number one thing on the strategic plan was to replace the district courts building. It was dubbed a security and a safety nightmare. So I'm gonna let Nick talk to the conditions of that building. I'm just gonna point out a few things that I've noticed: the HVAC, sewer, the tile, the wall covering is falling off and it's not replaceable because they quit making it. The ladder that hangs from the beautiful atrium, and then security. And I had letters from 3 out of 5 attorneys that practice law in there, saying that all of this needs to be fixed or replaced. And, Nicholas, could you come up and just give us some figures on how much money we've spent on this building in the last several years? Did you get that?
Well, I started in June of 17, so prior to me being here, I don't know about the numbers. I can tell you that this first quarter of the current fiscal year we're in, our normal budget, what we've done right now is we have $21,804.71 of just expenses. An additional a little over 24,000 was encumbered. Okay, so I mean, I guess it, to me, it's a lot, okay? So, the problem that I have with it is we're repairing things that it goes beyond preventive maintenance. It's, we're replacing things that are broken, or we're band-aiding things that are broken. The statement about it being a security and safety nightmare, that's saying we know it is, you know, so when you know things are that bad, it's, so what do we do? So I've jotted down a few things that we get called on and we have to deal with, so I kind of broke them up into categories. The aesthetics, the part that everyone sees, tenants, customers, public, the west side atrium, the whole west side of that building, the sidewalk, the brick retaining wall, that's not safe to walk on. It's shut down, it's roped off, okay? Again, all these issues, it's beyond why is it that way. I don't know why it's that way. I know that that's the area we're down, that's what I'm dealing with. So, west side atrium, you know, the sidewalk leaks, you can't go in the door, some of the overhead travertine has fallen off. It leaks, and that's by design. Where the glass leaves that travertine wall, it's tucked in behind the facade, okay? So when water sheds down that glass, it sheds down in between the actual building and that facade and wicks its way down through the path of least resistance. So that's where the water gets in. The bladder that was hung, it catches water, but it's not repairing anything. It's catching it after it's wicked all the way down, you know, from the top down. So it needs to be there. Unless that's what we really, I guess is the best way to say. We use it, you know, when it rains. Your ceiling tiles in the entire building are discontinued. We cannot get them anywhere. The only way to replace them is to buy a similar looking tile and either have them painted or hand painted, put them in. Most of the tiles in there are a gray top color, I guess you could call it. And quite a few of them have sagging areas where there's been water damage or some kind of damage in the past. We've talked about starting in one room, completely redoing it, and then waiting a year, and then doing it, you know. So that's another problem. The paneling throughout, where there's not vinyl wall cover, there's wood paneling. There's, you know, handprints, there's worn areas, there's places where the paneling's actually coming off from the water coming in. I have not been successful in locating more of that same paneling, so it would be a replace. I cannot find a supplier of that same pattern of vinyl wallpaper. We're out of what was left. One of the main complaints is it's just the design. The windows are on the outside of the building, so if you're in a hallway, you get natural light. If you're in the interior of the office, there's no natural light, no windows, you're in there. Mechanical. My background is plumbing. The first thing I noticed, there is no domestic hot water system in the building. That's against code. So not only did they turn it off, there are no water heaters there, you know. And with it being off as long as it has, you can't just turn it back on. You know, every pipe would have to be checked. Now, I was told there were too many leaks to deal with. And I don't know why it was turned off, I just know it doesn't exist. There are a few point-of-use water heaters throughout the building that some of the lucky ones still have some hot water. And those are your high use activated hits, because people want to wash their hands with hot water. In the pipe chases behind the bathrooms, the building's plumbed in copper. And where the copper pipe runs through the metal studs, it's not insulated, it's not protected, and when you have dissimilar metals touching, it creates electrolysis. I personally, actually, it's my birthday this year, spent 8 hours in a pipe chase, replumbing this all the lines that busted, and flooded the DA's, stationary room, I guess is what it's called. And it's just, that's fixed, but how many more are there? We have had multiple sewer lines cracked, leaked, it's cast iron, it's cracked. I don't know why it's cracked. Our electrical, we've had several of the units from that time period fail. We replaced drives, which control the operation of your supply air, return air. Buying those, having a licensed electrician install them, and in order to, keep the warranty on that, those come in around 7,000, a piece. If we have 4, we'll replace 2. Your VAV boxes, those are just the boxes in a ceiling that have a coil for water to travel through, a damper, and a motor. To date, the guys have done 26 motors, adjusted all the dampers to try and get relief, I don't know how many times they've heard, we don't have heating or cooling in our area, it's just, just what it is, so. When I say replacing, they haven't really fixed anything, that's preventive maintenance that should have already been done. So you still have an old box, an old system, maybe you have a new, $200 motor on it. Each one of those boxes has a coil in it with water traveling through it. At least once a week, the guys are getting a leak on one of those coils. Oh man,
It's my understanding that the refrigerant that is used in that building for the children was outlawed in the 90s.
early 90s, already.
So it was stockpiled, and so you have to buy it from the underground, basically, and pay a lot of money just to cool the building for a few days.
It's called R11, it's 3 upgrades behind.
Yeah.
And the last time we bought 200 pounds of it was $10,000. So.
And the chiller holds 800 pounds. So you got 200 pounds of it just to get by for 4, 5, 6 days.
And when you're,
$10,000.
when you have an emergency, they know you need it, and that more than likely drives it up.
Yeah.
So we have found it cheaper since we're not in emergency state, but that chiller has been, multiple times they said, hey, this chiller is not gonna make it forever. So I went as far as to get a quote for a new chiller. The smallest amount was $160,000 to put a new unit in. And if you want a building to last 50 years, do you build a new building that's 50 years? Or do you try to make another building that's 50 years that has cracks? That's what I look at. It's not, there's a large crack in it. I'm not a structural engineer, I don't think homes are supposed to have cracks in them. I don't know. There's a large crack in the wall. Your convention joints along the facade, none of that is uniform, so there's movement. Probably some of that is designed in, I don't know how much is designed, I don't patch, some of it just to maintain what's there, And, I guess, I look at the LEC and the cost to maintain that building is minimal. Once a new building is there, it's minimal. Okay, that's what I look at. And a lot of times when a new building is built, the maintenance side doesn't get talked to the construction side. And that's why you have hidden valves and things in the wall that no one knows about until they leave. So when that building was built out there, maintenance and the construction crew, they kind of got together, hey, we're going to be able to work on this stuff. So I think that may be some of the reason why there's hidden gems that we find.
You don't paint a very attractive picture at all.
No, he doesn't.
It's
But
just-
that's the truth.
That's what we can hold on.
The problem is we're out of bandage to do that. You can't just,
But that's in-house, this is all in-house
Yeah.
stuff that we've done, minus the buying refrigerators.
thank you. Any questions for me?
I have maybe some foundational questions, no pun intended, I was thinking for a different word quickly, but, so when this building, and this is just things we learned kind of over the years, right? So I'm just making sure this is all still accurate, because I feel like the story changes a little bit depending on who you talk to. What I learned as a commissioner many years ago about the building, I don't hear a lot of disagreement about the infrastructure that needs to happen in that building. That one, quite honestly, was before the LEC. That when that capital committee group started meeting under Judge Ware's tenure, it was really about the district courts building. So I don't know that you'll hear a lot of disagreement about the need. That was a concern even then, right? And so it always comes down to dollars, which is where, you know, we tend to like discern. You know, I of course was the nay vote on the LEC, and I got a lot of personal kind of comments around it, and I said, of course, I knew we needed a new sheriff's admin and support all the work they're doing, but I knew this project was coming right after, right? So 20 million plus price tag, the debt is now kind of on the rules, if you will, and then now we know we have to do a very significant project. So I guess my question is, and maybe just in terms of the history, because I'm not on that committee, is this is about a 33-year-old building. I don't have an appreciation, Carrie, for how much that building cost to bring up. And what I've heard over the years is the structure was different than it is now. The Commissioners Court was very involved in building the building, maybe even as much as a construction project manager, which unless we happen to have had a commissioner at that time that was their expertise, that is not our line of expertise. So I think those boundaries are very different now, but will you help me kind of understand what you know about the building and kind of how it was built? Because I think it's important for us to know that, especially as we get ready to talk about how much this is gonna cost, right? And then what
First of
your
all, were you
agenda
born
item is.
yet?
Yes.
Always a little.
Just 84,
It was not, it started in 84, and it was finished in 86, and it cost $11 million, including the property. We had to buy the land back then,
which was
we don't have to do that now. Is that correct? 11 million, is that correct?
So as far as do I know the history, I have my opinion of the history. It's really one of the, and that's for being in other buildings. I look at this building, you know, it was built in a different manner. You know, there's a sense of what was built the last, let's put our name on it. We want this building to be a building we can look at for a long time. And if you see it in even residential construction, you have the same people building a house here and here, but maybe they're using different materials, you know, and that's what I look at over there, you know. Maybe you had, you know, contractor grade things going in to hit a different price point, you know, and again, that's my opinion, just looking into it. And I don't know who the construction manager was. I don't really know exactly what happened because I wasn't there, but that's my opinion that maybe there were different building practices there as far as, hey, they need a building, they need it in a hurry, let's make it last 30 years, 20 years, things like that. That's my opinion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Judge, I think he may have been on the periphery of getting here, being a part of some of the, at least have some knowledge.
I was not working here, but I was a young adult married with 2 children, and I saw the building go up and thought, wow, what a great building. Didn't know anything about the concept of why they did the way they did. My husband was a carpenter. He thought it was, you know, well.
I think, and not to throw stones, and certainly wouldn't be throwing stones at us at the court.
Yeah.
But, I think that to a large degree, we got out of our lane. And, our job is to ensure that those are hired, the subject matter experts are in place to do the job.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't do that. So the consequences. So when I'm saying now, it is much better and sort of streamlined, and the strategic planning initiative we did that really forecasted this, it certainly puts it on the front burner. And, I think we're more or less doing our job right now, allowing those subject matter experts such as yourself and others to do the work that they are trained and qualified to do. So I think that's why we got a little bit off kilter. We took a left step themselves that probably should have done. I know that again, insert committee that has been chosen and, varied individuals throughout the community are well in place to do exactly what, we think we can.
Nicholas, anything else to add? Anything else for you? Okay, so then, about 5 years ago, the committee decided to do, or wanted to do a feasibility study on what it would cost to replace that building. And it's 77 million from another architect that came in and gave us an estimate, 77 million in today's dollars.
This was the architect's assessment?
Yes. And then now, we have hired a different architectural company to come in and give us, and they have gone to each department in that building and talked to them about the wants and the needs. And their grand total for estimate actually, is 63 million. That is including their fees. That's a big savings already from the 5 years ago to now. For some reason, they could do it cheaper, which is a good thing for us. We have been stockpiling money for quite some time, starting with Judge Ware and myself. We have $9 million to pay down on this structure, which would bring it to $54 million. An annual increase on a $100,000 home in Carter County would be $1.25 a month, which would be about $15 a year. That is all. Did I miss anything, Carrie? Is there anything in there, anything else they need to know?
To keep that tax increase to $15 a year, it would require that we're using the funds that were left from the LBC project to pay the debt on the LBC.
Okay, say that one more time. There's some distraction here. Someone's talking really loud.
In order for us to be able to keep this at $15 increase, the court would have to agree to use the funds that were left from the LBC project to pay down that debt.
The 2 million that's left.
Yeah, 2 million.
So the 2 million that's left that we just saw in the report on that fund balance, you're saying that would be used to pay off the debt still sitting on the rolls?
Correct.
Okay.
And we also have about a $2 million fund balance in our debt service, and we might use a portion of that to make sure we stay at that lower tax rate.
Okay, so then here it comes down to the difference between certificates of obligation and bond election. Local government code allows us to use COs. The payback is the same, no matter what. So we use COs, we use bond election, the payback is exactly the same, $1.25 a month. Obviously, it would be more for a more expensive house and less for a less expensive house. Pretty easy. We do a bond election, it would require an election, which would cost the county about $30,000, and that's taxpayer money. If it should fail, and it could, we would have to wait 2 years before we started on this thing again, which in my opinion, if you add 2 more years to it, it's really 6, because it takes 2 years to get everything ready, and then 2 years to build. So if we have to do 2 years to wait to do another election or another whatever we do, that's a 6-year thing down the road. In that 6-year time, this building would continue to deteriorate, and something has got to be done. And so that's my, I'm off of my soapbox now. I will let anybody else talk. Scott, is there anything you want to say about it?
Well, probably telling, preaching to the choir. When we talk about the condition of this building, one of the factors to bear in mind is potential liability attaching to the continued deterioration of that building. We as the county's lawyers worry about exposure with the water intrusion into the building. There's the continuing potential for development of black mold or other environmental problems. There's always the problem of the potential of water getting out on the floor and somebody slipping and falling. There are potentials for people to fall around the building. There are potentials for elements of the building fall off and hit someone.
If a claim was raised under state law, we look at $100,000 damage cap per incident. If a federal court was to determine that the county acted with deliberate indifference in allowing that condition to persist, and it resulted in an injury that could somehow be shoehorned into the constitutional claim, then there is no damage cap. So how much that would be eventually is speculative, but the point being, from a liability assessment and prevention standpoint, the sooner we do something about this, the better.
Excellent statement. So,
We,
anything
because of our does this kind of put us
Raise a good point. In either case, federal or state law, the general touchstone is whether we knew about the risk and essentially disregarded it. I think with the strategic plan in place, it's going to be difficult to argue that we didn't know.
And Scott, wouldn't you say it's fair to say that we knew about it well before the strategic plan? I mean, I'm just thinking about when that original committee was formulated about 5 years ago that you referenced.
Perhaps, but I think there was maybe wiggle room to argue about specific problems we didn't know. We undertook a fairly comprehensive review in the strategic plan, and so now I think we are better informed about the overall and comprehensive condition.
I think and I agree with that. I think regardless of it, when we knew, it was 5 years over the.
Right, if the plaintiff comes in now, they're gonna argue, doesn't matter what you might have known 6 years ago, you certainly knew as a result of proceedings.
And Judge, on your comments about the 30,000 to run the bond election, would that still be the price tag if we're matching an existing election cycle? Like the election's already gonna happen in May or November.
That's an Elaine question.
Is that an additional 30,000 on top of it, or that's just if we were to do a standalone election?
Well, first of all, we wouldn't be doing a standalone
Right.
election.
Uh-oh, she's taking a
Thank
joke.
That's exactly right. If you're part of the election that happens in May, it would be 24%, I believe is what I figured. That's assuming all entities participate. And I believe, which is approximately $30,000.
Okay.
If it were to be, election were to be held in November when we're doing the constitutional, it would be no more than we're already obligated to do. So it would vary in there.
So November would be less, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
November would be less expensive because you're not, but in the May cycle, it's 24%. That's right.
24% of the total, yes.
Okay.
And so, and I believe Judge Tanner saw the estimate that I did for the entities, and that was based upon every entity participating. So assuming that perhaps one of the smaller school districts does not need to have an election, then our burden would be a little bit higher.
Either way, it's
We were-
taxpayer money.
Either way, yes.
If we would decide to put this on the ballot for May, is there enough time to really get that done?
For me, it is.
But I don't know if we
Yes.
have enough time for us to do the prep work we need to do to inform the public, the committee and engage in action. I'm not sure that's cutting pretty close.
If the county were to put it on the ballot for May, it would have to be ordered by February the 15th. So it'd be it'd be February the 11th for
That would be that cold.
that particular meeting.
So Judge, my concern is that I think we started this dialogue, and Commissioner Church, you mentioned this during the last court when we were wrestling kind of with HOK as the architect and whether they were the right one to just do this assessment study, if you will, about, well, if it goes for a vote, right, if it goes for a vote to the people, obviously this amount is, I mean, it makes you pause, right, like about our obligation to inform just the general public around the conditions and what that looks like. Like I said at the beginning, I wouldn't disagree with the conditions. I do wrestle whether it would be a straight CO versus a election, not because of all the reasons you just mentioned, but just the price tag. Keep me honest, Carrie, I feel like this is more debt times 2 that we've ever taken on as a county, usually in the $60 million price range, constituents would have an opinion, right, one way or the other. And then a couple of things I have kind of bouncing around is even during the LEC, which was 20 million range, we were very close to even a petition at that time. So just in terms of diligence of making sure the taxpayers help own this decision, you know, I lean towards the vote from that perspective, but I definitely understand all the challenges, right? And there are complications. If it does fail, the time for something like that to happen, there's some liability concerns. If that does take longer, I think what I am unsettled about is, I mean, we're still talking about a $60 million project, and that is not, that's what keeps you up at night, I guess is how I think that.
I sympathize with what you're saying, and certainly, transparency is, was a big plus, that key to being informed. But however, as elected officials, that we represent those entities throughout the whole county, it is our job to ensure that they are, notified, informed, and have an opinion, and express an opinion. So if you look at it from that perspective, I share the judge's concern about hypothetically, the negative, if it does fail, and we're looking further down the road, and given what we already know about the safety and security issues of the infrastructure that is in place right now, we're taking on some serious, obligations that, we would be at fault. So, I see it both ways, but I see our job too is, ensuring that we do what we can do, and should do, to inform the public.
What if we were to get petitioned? I don't know what that process, what would happen in that scenario if there were enough signatures and, that's never happened to us, I'm sorry. It would require it to go.
At the next available election.
It would force the hand of a vote, okay. It's just not anything we've ever experienced,
Which
so.
more than likely would be in November.
Correct.
I know, that's just another year. Commissioner Church, would you like to add anything? Randall? Step forward, if you sir, and state your name.
I probably can claim, and I'm real sure I can claim, being the longest resident in that building. I've been 34 years as prosecutor, it's been 26 years now in that building. Your answer in regards to how it got built, the Commissioner's Court took over, and there wasn't a sub for the county in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
And I contribute that to probably some of the problems in the building. I've had an employee fall on the handicap sidewalk coming into on the east side. The west side was originally the main entrance of the building. And it didn't take very long for what I call the goldfish pond. Why you would put water over the records department, I have no idea, but that's what they decided to do. And I don't remember how long it took, but it started looking, and it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse, until one time it got the records department really good. So then they didn't fill it up anymore. It didn't take but a couple of winters for everybody to realize the west entrance is built the worst way they could ever done it. It's got about 4 different slopes and 4 different directions. And even with the guardrail, because it gets ice on there, even with the guardrail, your feet might still slip out from under you. So folks started going through the other side in the wintertime. The north steps, the last time I looked at them, and I hadn't looked at them in a long time, there was like 4 steps that were off that on the west side. Tile were off there, and it was a disaster. The retaining wall out there is not because the judges said to me, it didn't retain in anything. The DA's office, when Rebecca King was district attorney, I think it rained like a couple of inches of rain one night, and they came back to work the next day, and I think an 8-inch drain pipe, main drain pipe from the roof, off the roof, was, the end of it where it was connected to another pipe was about 3 feet inside the office on the north wall, first office on the north wall, on the north side, on the office on the outside. Filled up the office, and I forgot how long they were out of the office. The water ran down the stairwell, out there, and I've got the second floor, and I think some of the clerk stuff. I can't remember how long they were out of that office, because I wasn't here then, I was in the Atlanta Judicial District. I got back to the office in 2005. The roof was a disaster. At one point, when y'all, I got y'all to redo the roof, and I said, when a sparrow flies over and he takes a leak, it leaks in our office, I wasn't kidding. And there was many times that we had many 55-gallon barrels in our office, 5-gallon buckets, particularly Don Clayton's office where the coke, if you get off the elevators, you see the coke machine. Behind that, there's a T from where the outside wall comes in, and then it really kind of goes down to the point of the glass, and that's where that elbow is. And Donna had 3 55-gallon barrels in his office and a 5-gallon bucket. And I'm 3 offices down, and I could hear the water running down between the sheetrock. So thanks for fixing the roof.
Talk about security for a minute.
Now it's starting to leak again. There's not any more replacing the tiles because you can't find the tiles. The building I'm gonna say about 2 months ago, I don't think it was that long, I didn't write it down, but we had an elevator go out. It was down for about 3 or 4 days, because they had to wait to get parts. Got that elevator up, and about 2 days later, the other elevator goes out. And we waited about 3 or 4 days for that to get fixed, because you gotta wait for parts. That lasted about 2 weeks, and we did the cycle again. The building has gotten to a position that it's not gonna be much longer, and you're not gonna be able to find parts. It's gonna be like the heating and their air conditioning system. I know that the Santa Fe building for the renovation, some reports had to be just tonight. There's gonna be, it can't turn into 6 years. It cannot turn into 6 years. And there's only one way to make sure that doesn't happen. Because I'm telling you, for the health and safety of the people in that building, it can't wait 6 years. So I'll answer any, you want me to talk about safety?
Talk about
Security.
security.
It's a nightmare for several reasons. Like over here, you've got 4 entrances, they can't do all 4. Manpower's 2 ways to go to 1. We have 1, that means everybody goes in and out that door. That means, and I know particularly one judge that really doesn't care for that, having to do that. He would sneak and go around and the exit on the north side, because he had to keep the door. Having 1 entrance and exit is not a great idea. It makes folks easily accessible to, judges. If Judge, I'm gonna say what the judge should say. If we're commingling with citizens, that means we have a greater opportunity to get there. When, the assistant DA got killed in, Tyler, I believe it was. Kaufman County. When he got killed, he got shot outside. Thank you for the lights. There's 5 lights up there, 6 lights up there. God's. But my folks, we wear red shirts on Fridays to support our troops. My folks didn't want to wear red shirts. And until we found out what happened and who it was and all that kind of stuff, they didn't wear red shirts to come into the building. I guess that would cover it for me now. I had made one point now, but I had not been able to make it.
Y'all have any questions for Randall?
No, I mean, I would just add that I don't think we disagree much in terms of that the building needs an improvement. I don't feel like that's where our disagreement is. It's just the way to fund it and the dollar amount is where most of our agreements, the disagreements typically come from.
You mean the dollar amount being the threshold that you would look at, maybe that out for an election?
Where you're at is how you're gonna do it, and I feel
Yeah.
it's not gonna last 6 years. Probably something happen.
But even that's not 100% safe for anybody to get a petition. I'm only calling that out because even if the court takes the direction of COs, I'm assuming that's what we're hearing.
But even if a petition is not a 2-year wait, it's not.
You just have to take it for the vote, and then if it fails in a November timeline. I'm just trying to paint the full picture, because there are a lot of moving parts.
Thank you, Randall.
I wish I would say something.
Okay.
Hearing how that building was built, and speculation what happened, I would probably agree. Some people accuse the builders of the problems. I don't think it was the builder. I think it was they were allowed to build it the way they were told, and that's where the mistake was. And I think they were told that because in the past, Potter County, I'm trying to be not too derogatory, but Potter County in the past has tried to do things on the cheap. And I don't think that's the way you have a successful building, have a successful program, whatever it is. You can't do it on the cheap. So I think we've been kind of put into a corner, and I too think that the transparency, as Commissioner Vaughn has stated, is important. But I don't know that we have time to get all that done.
Mr. Kelly, do you have anything about that?
You know, I went through all the do's and don'ts in that building 3 years ago, and it's not that much of it really showed us all of the issues with the building, and then get any better. That's what we were for sure. The building has to be repaired. The only question I would comment on is been and how we get it done, has to be done as soon as possible.
And it looks, seems like an enormous hill to climb because of all the renewal and construction and things that are going on downtown. And it's all seemingly coming all at one time. And regardless if it's municipality, if it's county, it's still coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Yeah, it's the same taxpayer, so I think that's what you'll feel, just in terms of the public. I'm imagining we're making moves, cities making moves, school districts making moves, and so collectively, you know, it feels, you're still one taxpayer if you're in the city, so I think that's really what we need.
That's so true, but it is what it is. And we're in this situation. Regardless how we got here, we're here. So we need to make the decision with respect to moving forward for the county over the course of decades. I mean, decades to come. So I don't know. That's
The other thing was a report of the cost of repairing what we have and the cost of the new building $2 million to,
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, it would be crazy to even consider, we trying to correct the problems that have been.
Did we get a conceptual drawing of what we're looking
We have not. We have not got a drawing. The architect said that they do not do, artist renderings because the public looks at them in a way and they go, yuck, I don't know what that's ugly. So they were just gonna do blocks. That way they would show what the intention is and so no one can make a preconceived notion of what it's gonna look like.
at? Do we know how many stories, how many square feet compared to what we have?
What was the square footage of us, 100 and?
Two things to tell you an actual number.
132,108.
132,000.
That's how much is in the building now.
69,837.
That's twice.
It's only gonna be four stories instead of 5, and basement, no basement. No time.
They're projected 50 years minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because why there's an increase, that's what they're projecting.
How do we keep from having the same problem, ceiling tiles, HVAC equipment that you can't replace because it's outdated?
I mean, there are gonna be things that businesses that go out, but you avoid a lot of that by, the company that is Armstrong, they've been making ceiling tiles for you forever, they're still in business. When you start doing proprietary or special order things, you run the risk of, you can't get that anymore, so. They're looking at doing, quality, price point, and the ability to take care of a building for that same length of time, that's their goal. You can't guarantee a company will be in business for forever, but, there are things you can do.
And you tend to buy product that you can keep on retainer, so that you can. So Carrie, did you say the current was 69,837 in square footage, and then the future 132,108?
Right, yeah. The model that Commissioner Keller spoke of, it was only 2 million different. That did include a 65,000 square foot addition for annex to the existing building.
Which would cover the entire lot. There'd be no surface parking, it would be all just fixing the building there and adding an annex.
So I would expect that to get some questions, to be very honest, right? So we spent a lot of time talking about the concern of the building, but double the size, double more depth than we've taken on. And so I'm just calling that out.
Let me just bring this to mind. If you're gonna fix it, or are you gonna put the people that are in it right now? You can't fix it while they're there.
Yeah, y'all asked how you keep from getting in the same position we're in now. Every time something, I guarantee you, the first time anything in the past got said it needed to be replaced, it didn't get replaced, it got replaced again and again and again. That's what's got you.
So the answer to the question is, we're doubling the size. Why are we doubling? What are we, doing? What are we encapsulating in that construction? The size.
Growth, just like you do any building.
That's the,
We did growth for the LEC. We're gonna go for growth for this. I mean, the DA's office is not gonna stay the same. We're gonna increase in size.
I think the current square footage is closer to 100,000. I'm trying to look it up.
I thought it was about 110 or something like that, and then it was gonna be 100.
I think it's somewhere between 96 and 104.
I just think we need to have a spec sheet that we are very clear and we know exactly, like, we're not all privy to the future kind of square footage, even dollar amount that's been vetted, new versus, renovation. Because as soon as whatever action we take, we will get questions, right? And so we'll just funnel those to you, Judge, I'm assuming, but we'll get stopped in the community, right? And say, help me understand, and we can't articulate, like I can't articulate that today for the vote today, right? And so I wanna make sure that we're clear about our position.
I think that's, and I've said this before, but I think it's critical to have one voice. And the judge should be the obvious one.
I'll be the voice, I don't mind. I won't sing. Did you find that?
I had found
We've
it
got
on
it, we've got
ground.
it in that printout, I know we do, it's in the.
Yeah, I think, maybe 116, 151 is the current, and the 132, 108 is where it's going, I'm sorry, I was confused.
So Karen's 116,
116.
And that should match what's in that feasibility study that Architects did a while back, right? The square footage was the square footage, then and now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go back and look at that. Okay.
That's better.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else wanna add anything? Anybody? No one?
I'll add, it stinks.
It does, doesn't it? Every day jurors that said the same things, and it stinks.
One day it
In terms
smells
of-
like sewer, one day it smells like mold.
And there is there, I shouldn't probably, is there mold in the bathrooms on the walls?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not this one.
Or musty, I'll say musty.
There could be,
I've never smelled
Because
it.
someone told me that there's mold in one of the men's restrooms, there's mold on the wall.
Kim's point does raise a consideration that probably, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. And rightfully, you have to take account of all the other things that are going on downtown and all the dollars the city is proposing to spend on whatever projects they have. One of the things that may be easy for some people to lose sight of is that for those projects that the city is doing, those are for amenities that people can go to enjoy things. Courts building is a place people have to go.
And I
They're
don't think they
constricted.
enjoy being there.
No, they do not. Whether it's going for jury duty or whether it's going because they have a case, it's criminal or civil. And that adds into, that factors into the liability concerns I have too, because people don't like being there. They are far more likely to, if something unfortunate happens, be willing to try and litigate. They figure if they've been in that nasty building once, they'll go again to sue the county.
You're right, so ours is a need, not a want.
Right. Yeah.
Can that building ever be just forcibly shut down because of health risks?
It would cause an interesting fight, but theoretically, yes. Theoretically, the city could come in and say that it does not meet the environmental codes applicable to construction within the city limits.
And we're grandfathered in because of ADA.
Right, now, if we start any renovation project on this building as opposed to reconstruction, we will have to reconfigure it so it is compliant with the Americans with
I don't
Disabilities
know how they would do that, how would they make the entrances?
It would be phenomenally expensive to do that.
Well, it might be, this is probably a different approach, but it might not be a bad idea to have them come do an environmental assessment of it, right? It's because we are talking about a very big price tag, and so that we can have that as a part of the dialogue, right? Or what we're saying is, it smells, there's this sound, and I understand what all those things are, but if we can have something in terms of codes that are in
I'll tell you,
violation,
yeah.
it could help
I mean,
add to the.
As a lawyer, my
conversation.
bigger concern is the fact that the door pulls aren't to ADA standards, the door widths aren't to ADA standards. We only have 2 elevators in that building. That is likely insufficient under ADA's accessibility guidelines. I think your greater expense and your greater potential exposure, because I don't think the question exists here whether something needs to be done with that building. The question is whether you renovate the building or build a new one. And part of the reason that the expenses are so close, I think a large part of the reason, is you would have to make that building ADA accessible when you start this project.
that, if we do that, and we do that, but still continue to keep the wheels moving. Don't, rein them in, waiting till the, make sure that assessment is closed.
What if they said, you gotta close this building, where everybody go?
Right.
But that's a very different dialogue in terms of the immediate action that would need to be taken, right? Like, in my mind, but
Both of them come up. Got something on the environmental bill?
I forgot to tell you probably the most important thing to me. My son came up to my office and he said, Dad, this bill's old. So I got an air purifier for my office. And it was about 5 years ago, and guess what he said the other day? Your office smells old. And if you'll come in, be one of the first people to crack the doors in the morning after the weekend, a lot of times you can smell them in the breeze lane.
Nicholas?
Okay, I promise I'll be done. Mr. Holland said something about size increase. One of the reasons that they're increasing is the functionality of the building has changed. HOK, doing the conceptual design, they found out during the space allocation meetings, if you take the district clerks, they're stuck in that area, and the whole front, counter used to have large books underneath it, and it was built for a specific need in B4. They don't utilize that anymore, so, you know, wasted space there, that's gonna change. Your security, of course, will change, you'll have more of a centralized, central control security where they can watch the whole function of the building. The biggest change that I see is they want 3 patterns of traffic. They want, inmate, they want judicial just for judges, so where they're not mixing people public. So you'll have 3 traffic patterns flowing. Nobody intermingles unless there's security. So that would add some capabilities and future growth as they're making it probably for, floors. So, that. And elephant in the room is we have a very large records management system. It has to go, so, so they don't want to put it in the hole again. That, there's some of that. The environmental, I learned as a young service plumber, you never say in the word in someone's house. Same thing. Because if you are not a mold expert, you're going to go around diagnosing mold. There was a craze over mud mold in the early 90s, and then, you just don't do that. So are there discolorations on the walls? Absolutely. I don't know what they are. Does it stink? Yes. We try to keep as much air moving through there as possible to keep our air filters clean. If we see something that we can clean, we do that. But as far as is it environmentally unsanitary, with the sewer loops, yes. If you have an exposed sewer line, yes, that's not sanitary. Other than that, I can't really speak to it. I do know that Court of Appeals, when the inmate sewers flooded down the walls, I had Serpro come out and spray some waterside cleaner, and the stain may not go away, but at least I know there's nothing living behind the walls from that spill. So that's my environmental.
Okay.
Let me ask this question, as a court, do we feel comfortable in having a very proactive campaign to inform the public if we went to an election, to ensure that all the questions and concerns were put out there in the forefront, and along with this committee, that we would get a favorable outcome as a court? Can we feel comfortable that we can do that?
I don't think we felt comfortable even a year ago. The amount of time that it takes to prepare for something like that. Judge, I won't speak for you, but I feel like that's part of the reason why the discussion has changed from a a bond election to a CO because there is not enough time to educate about all of the pieces and then the ramifications that follow if it fails.
Well, not to mention the fact that the first, item we got was that it was gonna be upwards to 80 to 90 million. And so we thought, oh my gosh, we'll never get that done. Since it's only 54, the CO is more likely to go. I mean, it's just the quicker way to do it. The quicker we do that, get it done, the quicker we can start building.
And it's a 63 million, right? But you're saying,
54.
but the total project is 63 million.
63, but
The
we're gonna
debt
pay,
is
we're gonna
54.
pay 9 million.
Because you have 9.
Yeah, so it'll be 54 financed, correct, Karen?
So you answer my question.
Okay.
And we're within legal right to.
Yes, we don't. Local government code allows it.
First, the size of the building, I think Carrie has. Current building.
116, 151 is the growth, the proposed is 132, 108, which is about 13.7% increase in square footage.
Thank you.
Okay, so anything else anybody else would like to say before we make a motion? Anything? Okay, here goes. Don't know what's going. I make a motion that we, go through certificates of obligation for construction of a new courts building in the amount of, roughly $54 million.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? 4-1. Hallelujah.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on. Thank you, everybody. Number 9, resolution for grant application. To consider and act upon authorizing Judge Tanner to execute an application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of Attorney General, Criminal Justice System for continuation of the Victim Violence Against Women Act, fiscal year 2019-2020. Good morning. Good morning. I was
We're seeking continuation of the grant. We're gonna ask for more money this year, whether we get it or not, I don't know. The idea of asking for more money is to bring other positions that we had to assign to domestic violence within the grant. We're not adding positions, but we're asking that a investigator who's full-time assigned to domestic violence, as well as another lawyer, be added on to that, because that's the reality we're facing. Given the difficulty in prosecuting domestic violence cases, as well as the significant collateral consequences of conviction for domestic violence, including the ability for it to be enhanced to a felony next time out, as well as ramifications regarding your ability to possess your own gun, we see that those cases do not move the way other cases do. Indeed, we are looking at the possibility that the majority of the cases we have on our trial docket in the very near future will be domestic violence cases. If people don't want to plead. So, whether we get the money or not, we're not proposing to add employees, but we are proposing to bring employees within the ambit of the grant. So there will be theoretically an increased match number, but we're already paying for those employees, so that match will come from that. Now, whether we get that or not, I don't know, but we do have to have your approval to ask.
And almost every arraignment thing I see is domestic violence.
We are, and this, the Amarillo Police Department had, one of its initiatives is to increase enforcement efforts concerning domestic violence. So we're seeing increases in cases year on year on year. It doesn't show any signs of abating.
I make a motion that we approve authorizing Judge Tanner to execute the application for federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of Attorney General, Criminal Justice Division, for the continuation of the VAWA grant.
Motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. We'll get this back to you, okay? Again, it's the very same thing for the district attorney's office.
new positions, Randall?
Pardon me?
Are these new positions? Anytime I get a handout for
No,
these new positions.
same position, just a little more money involved in it. We're asking for $108,687.90 in that grant. This is, I think, about $3,000 more than we did last time. The Domestic Violence Coalition is doing well. I think our efforts in regards to domestic violence are, we're getting some good outcomes and some good rewards and helping a lot of more victims than we've done in the past. I think we're well on our way to hospitals to the same time around. And so, this small grant is for our lawyer, who y'all graced us to have last time. So,
So this is someone already in-house?
yes.
Okay.
We approve the application. Federal assistance to be submitted to the Office of the Attorney General, Criminal Justice System, for continuation of the AWA grant.
Second, all in favor, let you know. 5-0.
We'll have to make copies and stuff.
Yeah. And we'll get it back to you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Number 11, certificate of completion to recognize the completion of Public Information Act for Judge Matthew Ginn, County Court Law number 2. So recognize, 12, District Clerk to recognize the completion of the Public Information Act, open meetings by County Clerk, so recognize. Number 13, Salary Grievance Committee to consider and act upon the joining of 9 members and 9 alternates for the Salary Grievance Committee for 2019. I'll just do one.
How many? No, how many do you want me to get?
Oh, 2.
Okay.
Are you just gonna take us? Okay. All right, Alfonso, you go first.
First name is Patricia Thompson. And, you know,
She has a really good, she used to be a waitress in her other life.
She'll take this back from us probably and have the names.
and the second name is Brittany Brent Seal, Birtziel.
Ethel Jean Jones. Jervis Taylor.
Olivia Alvarez.
Richard Rick Zimmer and Elise Sutton.
Riley Abbey, and Lydia Munoz.
Do they get a letter from us saying you're on this committee, and then if we need to, we'll call you type of thing, or?
They respond, whether they agree to or not. For years, we would not have a full committee.
Tuesday.
So,
Like that.
not everyone agrees to do it. And the bad part is because they're coming off the grand jury and they don't understand that they probably won't meet. We try to make it clear in the letter, but they don't understand that they probably won't meet. And so a lot of them say no because they don't want to, they've already served in the grand jury, so they don't.
Yeah.
All right, HR, you go first.
Okay, Merle Atkin, Backlund, and Candy Dunlap.
George Rafkin, Lakeisha McMillan.
Tamara Stanton.
Regina Swain. And Roger Johnson.
Juan Lozano and Steve E. Bledsoe.
Need a motion on this, we do not.
I move to, approve the members, excuse me, I move to approve the 9 members and 9 alternates for the Salary Grievance Committee for 2019 and recognize those who are to serve.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Thank you very much. Number 14, Potter County Constable Precinct 1 to review the Tier 1 partial exemption racial profiling report, taking any other action. I don't think there's anything here. Is there anything?
Yeah, it's just required by law.
So recognize, thank you for that. Number 18, 2018 Innovation Award to recognize Potter County as a recipient of the 2018 Innovation Award from the National Association of Development Organizations based in Washington, D.C. This award recognizes innovative approaches to regional economic and community development. This was something that Commissioner Vaughn and Commissioner Murguia instigated, and we went along with, and we got an award for it. So very, very proud of this award. That PRPC was instrumental in getting this done too. Can't give them enough credit. So we received this from the National Association of Development Organization, Washington, D.C.
And I think what got attention, Judge, is that we're a county municipality. It's very unheard of for a county municipality to kind of take this multifaceted approach, which it seems very normal to us because we really do have a lot of dimensions in Potter County. So I don't think we necessarily fit in what size is your county and what's a good comparison to us, because we have both ends of the spectrum that live and reside in Potter County. So our needs are great, and there's never enough dollars to cover, but so, you said something, Judge, that made me laugh a little. I said, it was painful at the beginning, and so this really is kudos to each one of you in the audience, because these were very long days, and we really did have to talk about things that were difficult, but I found it very helpful to kind of see someone else's perspective, because the way our court is set up, we don't really, are not at liberty to have long conversations about what do you philosophically think about this. So it was nice. I actually, the takeaway for me that was very helpful was the relationships that I hope you continue to build and the trust. The document was just a nice, nice to have, and certainly the award. So thank you guys for the entire county.
Thank you guys did it too, so. that's important. Okay, the IT server room, I think we have an update.
So I'll ask Brandon and Nick maybe to come up. I'll set the stage a little bit, but I certainly will not do it justice. The main reason I asked to put this on the agenda is definitely just to give this board an update. I did not have an full appreciation for the amount of overheating that was happening in the server room. So I'm gonna give you a non-technical, just overview, and keep me honest, guys, because we can easily spend a lot of time on the technical piece, but if that's not our expertise, then it kind of goes over our head. So what I've learned is that temperature range in the server room is anywhere from 80 to 85 degrees on the average. Sometimes
We checked this morning, it's 80.
80, and so sometimes it's moved up to 90 to 95. Typical server rooms are 60 to 65. So this is a continuation. There have been patches, I'll use that word, we've heard that earlier today. There have been patches over the years. I think there was even a $30,000 expenditure for a unit. There's been all kinds of things tried over there, including air conditioning units from Home Depot, including these metal, I want to say tubing, but it reminded me of a space movie. The duct work, but almost a person could maybe fit in, it felt like it. So there's been a lot of attempts. The short answer is that server room is certainly in jeopardy right now, to be very honest with you. Why I thought it was important to bring it to the full attention of the court, we have no backup. So even though we have the data center, right, that now resides at the LEC, that equipment has not been brought online. That equipment that has been purchased is sitting in the server room because if they turn it on to get it in sync, it will overheat even more. Yeah, go
To
ahead.
your point, yes, we do have backups of all the stuff, but we don't have the secondary set of servers in place yet. So that's something that's ongoing right now, we're getting it all in place, but it's not there yet. I believe it was $30,000, what we spent that for is another, what's the term?
Standalone chiller.
Chiller, there you go, another chiller, so that when it was really cold outside, that's when we would start having issues, that's when we would start getting to 95 degrees in our room. Because it's cold outside, we don't need air conditioning in the building, and so that's where we, our room heats up really quick, there's a lot of machines in there, so, that piece of it has helped. But we still do have, it's a heat issue, it really is, we have a lot of equipment in there, it pumps out a lot of heat, and the room was never designed for as much equipment as we have in there. The actual cooling unit that's in the room isn't big enough to handle it. That's probably what we are gonna be looking at as the next step, is find a bigger unit that can handle the heat load in the room.
To decrease the norm temperature to 65.
Yes.
Well, that's the idea, yes, or lower than 80, that's, at this point, I would
But
just.
your normal operating temp in there is 80, even with the new $30,000 unit. The reason being is every chiller that we have, there are 3 different kinds at the center thing. They work off ambient temperature, they work off the demand of the building. So when it was 11 degrees outside, none of the chillers were running because they were programmed as, we don't run this 11 degrees. So we had to put a standalone chiller in the building, in the penthouse, that ran only when it was below 32. So it's giving cold water to that same unit that the other chillers do. The problem is that unit has a fan to cool, and all that cold can only suck so much heat out of that room. And you're producing more heat through the server racks that shoot heat out the back of them. And it's just kind of it's a cycle that we're producing more heat than we are food in that room. So 80 becomes your order.
So we have 2 follow-up items just for the court. And again, this is just kind of a quick briefing because I do see some action at some point coming back to the court. The 2 follow-up items we had after our meeting is we're gonna work on a heat load assessment with the consultant coming in, looking at that square footage to say what type of unit does it really need to cool it down. And then part of Lance's expertise that we have, in-house is along these lines. So he came in really on the fly, so kudos to him to just letting us call him and him show up. But he said, you need to be prepped for that room to look at the windows, because there's windows on the outside, the grade on it, and the airflow. So those are kind of the next steps. What I would do in terms of planting the seed for those that are working on the district courts project, this could very easily be the next capital thing that we're talking about. Data centers aren't usually built on the 6th floor of a historic building, even to get equipment up there and down, square footage. I think about all the technology and what resides on that server. There may be an opportunity to look at that different in the district courts building, just in terms of infrastructure. So to plant that seed for what it's worth to that committee.
Right.
And a new cooling unit, what would the cost be?
I don't know yet. That's part of the assessment we're gonna have done, see what kind of options we have, what can be done and what can't, and what it will actually take. I don't know. At one point Lance had said,
The most expensive one I've seen right now is 20,000. I've seen some for 7,500. Problem is, I can't do a heat load assessment, so I want a company to come in and give us an estimate of what they would do in that room, so that I, at that time, we can come back and say, okay, here's what company X, thinks we should do to, give us longevity. So we're also, we have some short-term relief, maybe to get it down to the 70s. We have some exhaust fans we're gonna put in, just some small things, and we're monitoring it constantly, because I get texts if it gets over 88 degrees in there.
Every minute.
And you can't ignore it.
You cannot, that's the mothership, correct?
Yeah.
The
And
mothership
that-
goes down, everyone.
to be clear, so the 80-degree temperature in there, we have fans that blow on that equipment right now. So it's not just, it's a little skewed just because your sensor has air blowing over it. But yeah, it needs something done with it, for sure.
Thank you. I wanted to bring that to the court. It was very new to me. I didn't know if it would be new to everyone and, okay, thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Number 17, Potter County Drug Court Resolution, hearing finally. Sorry that skipped forward.
That's all right.
Recognize the resolution for the 2020 Drug Court operating in 181st District Court.
Right, we have a grant also, excuse me, through the governor's office that we need to get, commissioners' endorsement on annually. We receive roughly $107,000. This year is what we're requesting, and we would just like judicial endorsement as a grant we've gotten for probably the last 7 or 8 years. We spend the money judiciously and wisely, and use it to serve the citizens of our community.
What's the name of the grant here?
Well, let's see. Just call it drug court grant, and I've got a number.
Okay, I see that number at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, drug court. Thank you.
Do we need to vote on this or just recognize it?
No, I think we need a
We need action?
an endorsement.
I move to recognize the resolution for the 2020 drug court operating in 101st District Court.
Is that the right wording, that we recognize versus approve?
Yeah, why don't
We
we,
need to authorize Tanner to execute.
I believe there's I think it's an endorsement. We sent a copy of that.
Your signature.
Okay.
If, just roll it out, sir.
okay. Have a motion and a second on the resolution. 5-0. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
We'll get this over to you if you need a copy, okay? We'll go to Julie's office first.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Number 18, unfunded mandates and also revenue cap. We did 2 resolutions here to oppose unfunded mandates and to oppose the revenue cap.
Who do we send these to?
I'm assuming we sent them straight to Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Jim Allison?
Do they also go to our elected officials here that will represent us?
Yeah, probably so.
Okay.
I wouldn't have a problem sending them to all
We
of
have to
them.
send them.
Don't you think, yeah, I would think both and then.
Kind of need somebody who's.
I make a motion that we approve resolutions of, opposing unfunded mandates and revenue caps as presented to the court.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on the favor, put your hand. 5-0. Number 19, adjustment of county attorney employee salaries to consider and act upon a request for the county attorney to adjust salaries of certain employees with no net change to county attorney's cumulative staffing budget.
Thank you again. We have experienced, some poaching in Randall County, but this particular request involves poaching from one of our courts. One of our court of laws poached one of our investigators to be bailiff in the court, and so we had a position open up. We decided to move the investigator who currently handles hot check and financial issues into that slot. That slot handles protective orders as well as CPS, and in that vein provides the majority of the security in CPS court. We don't want to see our lawyer going over CPS court where in any given case there's a significant potential for escalation. That investigator is making, remember, right, $9,800 more than that salary slot, so we're proposing to move that $9,800 into the new position. We're proposing not to fill the position in checks and financial and simply have our other investigators cover that. The other remainder of that money would go to a position that's essentially a receptionist as well as responsibility for compilation and processing initial intake cases before they go to the lawyer for screening. We have a young lady working right now who has an intern in that position. She would like to stay. We would really like her to stay. But her job she had before pays more. We can't pay her as much as she would be making, but we would like to sweeten the pot and attempt either to keep her or attract somebody of her competence. She's been a godsend to our office. Her name is Monty Jackson, in case you can't remember. She's done a very good job. So we would ask, again, the idea is we're not, the investigator who's moving position will not be receiving an increase in salary. It's to maintain his current salary. The only increase would be in the position that's the receptionist and responsible for the show.
So your investigator trainee, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So he's moving up just to the position, but no salary change?
That's correct. Keeps him at his current salary.
And then you're not filling the other position?
That's correct.
Okay.
Move to approve the request from county attorney to adjust salaries of certain employees with no net change to the county attorney's cumulative staffing budget.
Okay.
Motion and a second, all in favor, Richard?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 20, equipment purchase, county clerk to consider and act upon the purchase of the following item from Tesco's office machines. Quantity 2 Scan Pro 2200 high functioning microfilm scanners at a cost of $5,877 each, for a total of $11,754. Funds are budgeted. Chris, you have something to say about this? It's a lot of money.
Yeah. They need it.
But it's in her budget, so.
And so just to be clear, she has two options, which account, it says, record archive or county clerk records management. Do we know where this money is coming from?
Do you know?
Funds are available in both.
Either of those.
She's decided.
Do you know which one does it matter?
The records management is what we were considering. Yes, Tescosa won't, even, give us, on the machines that we have, they won't, work on anymore, give us maintenance agreements, because they're so old. We can't have parts on them.
Okay. Tends to be a trend here. It's too old.
Did we talk about this during budget, or did it just stop working, the current?
No, I think we've brought it up before. I mean, they're steadily.
I move to make the purchase of the two items as presented to the court.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor? Number 21, emergency equipment request from the fire department to consider and act upon the purchase of the following item from Simmons Martin Emergency Group 2009 Pierce Velocity Pumper. Is that a mistake? Pumper, or is it really called a pumper?
No, I think that's an extra word in that.
Just an extra word, okay. But it's on your,
Yeah, to reinforce their.
just to, you know, support
It's an extra
my staff or put pumper.
It's an extra pumper.
Okay. Okay, $185,000 from the CAD, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Can you help me understand the emergency purchase? What, did something go down? Yeah,
We
okay,
had
so
an
change back.
engine that lost a motor in it, and, the truck is 20 years old. We don't expect it's worth to exceed $30,000, and just to repair the motor is $25,000. So, we're gonna go ahead and let it go to auction and replace it with a 10-year truck.
How are we doing?
So this is an extra truck? Yes, this is a structural fire engine.
How are we doing on the overall, like, fleet rotation of all of your trucks and, like, is there an end in sight somewhere? What I get nervous about, Chief, is, the purchases for the CAD, and I know that fund is being used for the new Bushland Fire Station. And so we, as a court, got to feel, like, we took a deep breath during budget time, right, because there was this new fund. What I'm feeling is all of those dollars are gonna now be allocated, but you're still gonna have fire trucks that you need, and it's gonna go right back to the budget that gets vetted through everything else. That's kind of what,
And as it should. What we
really?
did is
Because I
we
thought we
went
were doing
in,
that for the fleet, so I wanna make sure I
we went
understand,
in and made a 2-year projection.
okay?
And the entire, reason for, initiating the CAB was for equipment for the fire department. And in that, we had always planned to build a fire station, to buy new fire trucks, and to buy equipment that we can't normally get through court. One of those things this year is going to be turnout gear for firefighters. The, cancer requirements and the stringent, use and disposal of that equipment has changed this year, so we're gonna have to buy upwards of probably 60 or 70 sets of turnout gear for our firefighters. So that's what that is for. And what we did is we went in and estimated, basically what your intake is gonna be. And we made a 2-year projection that basically said, at this point of this year, we're gonna try to replace the truck. At this point of this year, we're gonna try to replace the truck. All of those will be brought before the court in the, within the ordering time to make sure that it's approved and everybody knows where that money's going and how we're operating the funds. So we made a projection that 2 years from now, here's where we want to be. And one of the issues is it'd be real easy to go in and buy 5 fire trucks today. The problem is 20 years from now, 15 years from now, you have 5 fire trucks to replace at once. So we're trying to spread that out to get some new equipment ordered, to get some better stuff in our fleet, but at the same time, we're trying to maintain what we have to get us by until we start getting a little more stable on our feet. Right now, today, I have 4 trucks broken. That's not totally out of character for any other day on any other fire department that runs as many trucks as we do. So it's one of those things that's, we have to look at it as when does the failure of the equipment become catastrophic to the point that we can't fix it anymore? We had one truck that last year, going over it, we spent in excess of $15,000 on one truck to keep it running, and it was out of service most of the year. So we need to replace that truck. And that's kind of what I look at, is we can put dates on, we can put schedules on them, but sometimes there's things that change our plans. Like I have no intention of replacing this truck for the next 5 or 6 years, and all of a sudden, catastrophic engine failure is here right now. So that's I think that's kind of where we are. And I think Commissioner's Court approval should be done anytime we spend money out of that. So the public of all knows exactly where the money is.
So 2 things, if you wouldn't mind sharing the 2-year projection, that would be helpful, to just, I think we would all read through that and get ready for that. And then the second is, my takeaway after the CAB was that we wouldn't have this let's wait till it's catastrophic mentality, so that we're proactively, looking at it. So, but I'll review the 2-year assessment. I can schedule some time for you.
And that's it. We've already ordered a truck, I believe it was in October. And we're fixing to order a truck in March. In fact, we're finalizing specifications on it. So the thing to keep in mind on that is we're not waiting for catastrophic failure, but at the same time, if I was to go order a brand new fire truck today, I'm looking at 15 months before it's delivered and in service. So when we have something like this where we have catastrophic engine failure, I'm gonna look to a used truck because that's 30 days I can have one of those. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that, per se. But I will be in here probably next month looking to order another new truck that we're finalizing specifications.
That we already talked about during budget. Okay. Okay,
And
thank
Richard
you.
has a pretty good, proactive, schedule on place as well, looking at that, so you can set some kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that'd be good for all the courts, so, I think we're not there, but we catching up.
Right.
Where we started from, we moved, tremendous amount, and do an excellent job of monitoring and, custodial work with that.
And I've seen a lot of departments that when they get something like that, they kind of get purchase happy, they go out and buy a lot of stuff, and then a few years later, just like we're talking about staying away from, they wind up in a situation where now we've bought all this new equipment at one time, and now it's all going out of date,
how do we replace it all and continue to spend what we've been spending. So I really started that from day one, trying to stagger that purchase out, so we're not sitting here, 10 or 15 years from now, going, wow, we have 10 trucks, we have.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about the fund and the priority, and I'm not in your field, the two things that are a priority in my mind are the equipment and safety, right? They go hand in hand, and then everything else is like, yeah, we need better facilities and those kind of things, but, so those two things.
And that's the thing, is facilities is right up there with safety, because this facility that we're trying to replace, and like I said, there's a lot of things, I think we talked about in this meeting quite a bit, that there's a lot of cancer initiatives that have come along that we're gonna have to start making some changes to some of our station design. And this station that we currently have is not gonna change. There's no way to change it, so we're definitely gonna have an issue there. And then
The
just.
central station?
No, Station 1 and Bushland. And just the fact that we have, a station with structural issues and everything else. So I think that was the plan all along, was to see that we could put money away each time to be able to provide this station to this community. And I think it's rating right up there with community need and safety, as well as, the community's safety as ours, because it'll give us a lot better way to respond out of that station.
Okay, thank you.
Move that we approve the purchase of the 2009 Pierce Velocity Pumper, bin number 4B1CV 01E898 009617 at a cost of $185,000.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, Rich? Thank you, Richard.
Thank you all very much.
Appointment items to consider next on following Plum Run Road Bridge resignation of Jose County as maintenance tech, effective January 24, 2019. That's all we have on that. The second number two was, the guy, second number job. Elections, the appointment of Shelley Morgan as part-time deputy clerk in replacement for Becky Slater, effective January 14.
Make a motion that we approve the employment items as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor, anything on projects?
I should probably just real quick, in addition to the things we talked about today, I've been working with purchasing Chris on, elevator contract, that could be, it will be coming with the date. So, elevator contract, possibly switching vendors, vehicle maintenance garage, 11 month, checked out okay, we're waiting to do the law enforcement, those warranties expired February. And so I'm going through making what has been done, what haven't, and fire station, which I'll just talk about, so.
Okay. What about the bid? Does that close, the fire station?
No.
Okay.
No, fire station, well.
The bid is closed, the bid is closed.
For the architect.
For the architects?
What we haven't, then the next step is to get the contractors.
Okay.
We're in the green room. So we're having a meeting Wednesday. Thank you, Nicholas. The jail report, 541 people in our jail today, 89 of those are female, no one is shipped out. 86% are felons and 10% are misdemeanors.
What was it total?
541. It's coming down a little bit, huh, Sheriff?
Yes, ma'am.
I've heard the food's really bad, so maybe we're not.
I'll just do it last
I'm just kidding. Insurance items, anything, Chris? No wrecks, no, wow. That's good. Number 26, closed meeting. To convene a closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071. One, to seek advice of counsel regarding pending or contemplated litigation. It is 10:54, we'll recess, and be right back. Okay, we are back. It is 10:07. 11:07, sorry. No action was taken in closed meeting. Next one, executive session, nothing there, agenda items for next time, other than payroll tomorrow, be sure and come back with it.
I'm gonna put a resolution on the agenda. West Texas City Commissioners Association has asked the CDC to put in another bid for 2021, and so that will be on the agenda. And I'd like to just give an update on this current
Okay,
process.
and let us know what you can help with, if there's any.
I will. We're doing the host court night. Hopefully it'll be at the ballpark, that's what we're planning. We finally got a bid that was, I thought, that included everything except for the band, we still don't have that. The facility rental, food, drinks, other rental items, but anyway, it was pretty high, so we're gonna have to, and HR and I are gonna meet with Stephanie, CDC, and come up with our plan of attack, and then go meet with the ball team. But, the other thing that might be of interest is our money situation. It's coming in, we still have 4 pretty large contributors that said that they would give an X amount of dollars. I don't wanna make up right now what that is, but anyway, we have 4 that haven't come through yet, so I'm still working with them to get that. So, I think we'll have enough money, we will be coming to you probably for some extra help, especially on that night, because we'll have tickets to hand out, we'll have some other duties to do. Right now, we're progressing.
I absolutely refuse to wear a sock poodle hat, but I will come to the. I don't do hats, I don't do hats, I don't know if I can even do it. I might do a t-shirt, I don't know. And there's no other business today, but just for the record, this Commissioner's Court extends its, deep felt sympathy to the family of Judge Meredith Robinson. She was a giant of a little woman, and, mighty, she's gonna be very, very well missed, so, thank you, everybody for today, for coming together.
We'll wait so long to retire, so.
Yeah, that's the key. You looking at me? Anyway, so I think that's it.